Let me try again. I don't know if you heard that. Let me start again. So, this is my midweek chat video, and I'm talking about the wonderful things that women do, as it's National Women's Month. And the obvious one, as I just said, is carrying children. Being a parent and being a mum, you are seen differently to the father of your child, because they, at first when you become a parent, you kind of like fall in somewhere like a feeding machine, even though it is a wonderful experience, but it is a game changer and a change of life, but being able to carry a child, another human being, should never be underestimated, because it is what it is. Childbirth is, not easy, and people who say that having a C-section is lazy, have no idea, because usually the people who say that don't have kids. And I do think that when you do become a mum or a dad, you do start to see things differently, it's no longer about you anymore, and it's a massive transition. The other thing is, obviously we in the UK have a monarchy, which is led by a Queen Elizabeth II. She came into power in 1953 when my mum was born, and people kind of knock what the royal family do, but they do a lot of work for good causes and visiting different countries, and it must be very hard from someone who worked in customer service to be nice to people all day long. It is a very tough thing to do, to put on a smile on every day, and I bet there's times where she just wants to put her feet up and watch telly, but as to, make an appearance, when it comes to shows and, special events and occasions, obviously we then had a Prime Minister who was a woman too, Margaret Thatcher and Theresa May. Now, whatever you think about those two women, they, did take charge of the country. They left a lot of controversy over their reign, whether they did a good job or not. But you can't underestimate those types of women, because you've got to be very thick-skinned because if you think about it, and I'm not a big lover of members of Parliament, because I've seen it where, when I used to live in Hammersmith, and they started to charge people for parking in their car park, there was one guy who was obviously, he was an MP, because he was well known. He tried to get out of paying for the parking because he was an MP, and I do believe in leading by example and practice what you preach, because it was his party that decided that, hospitals would charge parking fees, to help save money in the NHS, but that comes with a lot of negativity, because where I used to live in Epsom, people would park in our street because they didn't want to park in the hospital because of paying parking, and I do think that's a cheek. I do think that people that work for the NHS, especially now as we've had a big pandemic, a lockdown, and they should be given free parking. It is a bit kind of, because if you think about it, they're earning money and they're having to give it back because they are being charged to park there. But where the hospital is in Epsom, it's not really near any train station. It's kind of like a 20-minute walk, so you kind of need transportation. And I know you can get buses, and they do have a shuttle bus between hospitals for staff, but I do think it's a cheek that those who work in the NHS have to pay for parking, you know. And well, anyone really, because nobody wants to go to hospital, do they? You know, and a lot of people go to hospital because they're not well. And like I say, there'll be and you know, when especially Epsom, it does have a maternity ward, and after you've had a child, you then have to they have to be taken by car to where you live, you know. And luckily, I was around the corner at the time, at Henry, but you know, there's people are not that lucky, and so I do think that, you know, that shouldn't be an issue. And there's a lot of women who work in NHS who I know, and they, you know, it is unsociable hours, and we can't underestimate those who work in the medical profession, because it must be a very same as the Queen in a way, where it sometimes can be very horrific and very, you know, emotionally draining, you know. And there's a lot of women who work in NHS who do a fantastic job. I mean, I know one where I live at the minute, the dentist that I see is a brilliant dentist. She's very people's person. She will, you know, she won't make you have procedures done, but she will advise it, you know, and then she kind of makes it your choice if you want to get your, you know, have a medical procedure on your teeth. She doesn't force it upon you. She just gives you the choice, and she's very much she makes you feel comfortable. Because I had a bad experience once in a dentist, but I'm going to save that story for another time. But basically, there was a blackout whilst I was getting my tooth taken out, and ever since then, my fear of the dentist, because at first I was all smug because my brother would have a lot of the time, you know, have to have a tooth taken out, and he used to absolutely, you know, he even kicked the dentist at one point because he hated it, and in the end he had to be sedated to get to have any dental surgery, you know. But for me, it was a long while, and then it was basically I still had my old tooth whilst the new tooth was growing, so the old tooth had to be taken out, and it was, you know, literally the most nightmarish appointment I've ever had. And yeah, so my fear of the dentist, you know, did stop me from going there for a long time, you know. But it's because I think my ex-husband, and we found that dentist because when we were living here before we moved to Epsom, he had an abscess on his gum, and she didn't even care that we were new, you know, we hadn't been to surgery before, and she's just people like that gain your faith in the medical industry, because obviously there is a lot of, you know, bad stories about the medical profession. So, you know, we can't underestimate the women who work in the NHS, and there are people that, you know, go to, you know, third world countries where it's a lot more dangerous, you know, and heart-wrenching, who you know, go over there every year to help, and lots of that is unpaid, you know. It's volunteers, you know, who are trained in medical profession that go over there, you know, and that is something, you know, that must be rewarding, but must be emotionally draining at the same time. And then you've got those who, you know, we now have women in the army who, if you see a series called Our Girl on BBC One, I need to catch up on that, but that's a good series, and it's about a medic who is in, because lots of the women in the army are medics rather than men, and it kind of highlights the danger of being a medic, because a lot of the time when there's wars in which there still is in those sorts of countries, they're often targeted, you know, they're medics in the army, more than the actual soldiers, you know, who go out there to fight. You know, medics are often the first sort of people they will try and take down, because you know, war it stands for people who want people to die, you know, basically. And so they, you know, that it must be so, I mean, they must have to, I don't know how they would sleep, how I'd sleep. I mean, I'm not a good sleeper anyway, but oh gosh, if I had to go over there, and I mean, there is a possibility that I may, can I say? And well, basically, I might be experiencing it soon. Let's just leave it at that. But basically, I think it's just a wonderful thing to do, to go out there knowing that your life's on the line every day, to try and help, you know, injured soldiers and you know, innocent people who get caught up in it, you know. And then you've got, you know, the women who actually come from those countries that do wonderful jobs. I often would buy the Women's Fitness magazine, which is a really good one if you're willing to exercise, and it highlights a lot of amazing women who you're not heard of, not famous, but they you know, organise walking and running events each year to raise money for things like cancer, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, and a lot of those injuries have a lot of women in those organisations who do a good job. Don't do it for the money, do it because they actually like being part of a charity and a good cause. And also women who, you know, are lots of school teachers, you know, are women. And I did have some good school teachers. Got say, even never loved school, but having good teachers, especially female teachers, made a difference. You know, the one teacher that stands out for me at St Paul's is the legendary teacher called Miss Connolly, because she was effing blind. There's a lot of people probably say she's not a good teacher, but she was, because she was just so like, she hated it there. and it kind of was more relative, because, you know, the headmaster at the time wasn't exactly, you know, Prince Charming, you know. He could be a right git, you know, and a bastard, you know. But she was someone who everybody kind of behaved, and because she was so, she used to be little shits some days, and let's do the fucking register. She was saying in the mornings, because she was so real, and I think that's why everybody loved her, because she was so kind of what you see is what you got, you know. And then, you know, secondary school, it was a lady from, the one that stands out for me is Miss Libovich, who was my form teacher, and she was not well actually during my time at Grey Coats, but she was very kind of, she helped a lot of kids who were not having a good time at home, you know, to help them with their, you know, their schoolwork, and for someone to talk to. And also, I don't want to forget someone. I mean, I want to talk about another teacher that I've mentioned before, called Mr. Wynn, and I know that what's got to do with National Women's Day, but because he helped a lot of the girls in our school who were very, very, you know, academic, but they were having a bad time at home as well. And I just want to mention him because he did a lot of, especially girls, because I think girls can be a lot more emotional than men in some ways, because boys won't always be that kind of talkative about how they feel, you know. I've noticed that about Henry. He's very good at expressing love, but when it comes to if he's feeling, you know, a little bit insecure, he won't often say it, you know. And I see it as my role to be, you know, there for him if he wants to talk to me about it. But with girls, you know, we can be a lot more, I would say, a lot more vulnerable at the fact that it can hit us a lot harder, you know, than men. And that's not insult to them, it is. It's because I think it does come down to masculinity, you know. And they are sometimes a lot more tougher than women, because we do take things to heart a lot of the time. And but also, you know, I think we also can be a lot more have a lot more of a tough skin as well. So, you know, I mean, there was a time when I didn't feel so great when I was a teenager, because I wondered if boys, you know, did feel the way that I felt. And it's not that I didn't want to be a woman, I just didn't like the emotional what's the word? Emotional roller coaster, you know, that can come with being a teenager and going through that change of life, you know. Also, I think, you know, we are, you know, there's a lot of women who are childminders who do a great job. There was in my estate, and there's two that spring to mind on where I lived in Peabody. They were great women. They weren't. One was quite strict, but she was very respected on that estate, and she looked after a lot of kids on that estate. And you know, and she would be there to pick them up every day, you know, from school. She would often help with, you know, the estate's events that went on there, like when we used to have fireworks night, when we used to have like fancy dress at the competitions in the estate, when we had bingo nights. She was just a great, I would say, great ambassador for the, you know, for the world of childminders, because she was just so perfect. She was never one to kind of let kids run riot. She was very kind of like, very much disciplinarian, but she was just so real. She was a typical, you know, a Londoner, but she was just like everybody's auntie, if you know what I mean, to everyone, because she didn't just look after the kids that she was a childminder to. She looked after all the kids on that estate, you know. And so, you know, the two women that spring to mind are the two main childminders on that estate, because they did a lot for the kids on that lived there, because there was a lot of, you know, domestic violence and abuse and bullying, you know. But they helped to make it an easier ride to live in Peabody, you know. And they were churchgoers, but they never kind of rubbed it in, you know. Because I used to go to church and go to Sunday school, but they were never one to be overly religious. But it's just something they enjoyed doing on a Sunday, you know. I think for her, because she was a childminder, it was her time to do something for herself, you know. So that's why she would go to church on a Sunday. And also my playgroup leaders, but that I think of, Sandy, Sue, and I can't remember the other one. She lived like one block next to us, and I cannot remember her name. But they were great. They were, you know, mums themselves. I think Sandy was originally a nurse, and was a childminder. And where the play school was, it was in like an old people's home as well, and then the play group was at the back of it, and it was just great. We would have a morning of play, and then before we finished, we would have this is how different it is now these days, but you would have milk and biscuits, and then you would sing nursery rhymes at the end, whilst we would have a little snack. Then we'd be read a story, and then it'd be time to go home. And I loved playgroup days. I did. I think out of everything, I loved playgroup as a kid. I really did. It was kind of like my ideal, I would have probably got more out of a play school rather than a school, because I found doing sit-down learning very hard to do, because the only thing that I do really when I sit down is write, and that's something I've always done as a kid. But when it comes to like things like maths, doing tests, I just found them they would be like the most. If I had to choose like two of the last things that I would want to do, sit down tests and sit down learning would be the bottom, because I like it. I used to like design technology, because it was your idea, you were drawing it out and you'd create yourself, and it was more kind of like a physical activity, and I think that's why I enjoyed that kind of class rather than doing sort of sit down lessons all the time. And so playgroup nursery and my two schools, and primary school and secondary school, I would say that playgroup was the best one, because I just loved it. It was I could be left to my own devices, and I could just be allowed to play, and I've been playing with other kids as well, but I do think that I would bring back the play schools, because I think they are great start for kids, because it was, and it's the one that I'll always be very fond of, because I think it does make it. I think it's the people who take charge of it that makes the difference when you go to like a school. If you've got good people there who understand that and that school's not for everybody, but make it kind of like fun, I could deal with, because my maths teacher at Greycoats, my favourite one was a guy called Mr. Cooper, because he would make it really funny and really engaging and very, made it fun, and that's the kind of learning that attracted me, and the one thing that I got out of, primary school was writing stories. That's something that I really, I did get a lot out of, and writing is, for me, being a parent, writing and reading are the two best, top of the skills that a child could have, because I think with the modern technology, I think that I'm worried that it will affect, kids in the next generation to, write handwriting stories rather than using the computer all the time. And because it helps with vocabulary, grammar, it's just it's just a gift that I'm so glad I have, because I've used it for the whole of my life, and it's got me where I am today. So and I think women like Sue and Sandy were ideal people, because they I never felt like I was struggling when I was at playgroup. Because when I started school was when I felt like I was struggling a lot, and that's a horrible feeling, because you feel kind of like you're always being left behind all the time, and so yeah, the two women that stand out for me, Sue and Sandy, because they were great teachers, and leaders, and they were just down to earth and, you know, just great to, you know, be around. You know, they made it fun. So yeah, so that's my video for today. I will be doing some more about National Women's Month, because I think as a woman we should celebrate. You know, because now, you know, lots of things have changed. It's no longer seen as just a man's world. You know, because there's a lot of more things that women do that are amazing. So, you know, I'm going to talk about those as well. But I don't want to make this video any longer, rambling on. But yeah, so I think a lot of those types of women have what's kept me grounded and has made me who I am today, because you know, that's why I make this type of content, and I do hope you get something out of it. So anyway, I will see you later, and I will be doing another video of Truth About Parenting series. But for this midweek chat, I want to say farewell and have a good rest of the week. Take care.